We're going to go ahead and get started. My name is DeDe, and I have the distinct pleasure of being the moderator for this webinar. I use pronouns she, her, and Aya, and I'm sitting in my office on the north side of Grand Rapids, Michigan. And I'm tickled to be part of this webinar with my friend Alba. Mostly because I love her, and also because I resonate with the information she'll be sharing with you today. And I use some of the concepts in my own consulting and coaching practice. And that's been a result of 40 plus years of working in the financial services sector in B2B sales and retail, specifically within the arena of human resources or the people side of the house. But enough about me. I'm excited to introduce my friend, Alba Contreras Rodriguez. She's not only an amazing friend, but she's also a savvy, thoughtful, and compassionate business person. She comes to you with an impressive background in manufacturing with Ford Motor Company and the General Motors Corporation, in consulting with KPMG Management Consulting, and the coaching of executives, groups, and teams. She has an extensive experience and background in process reengineering, change management, and cultural transformation. Within all that experience, she's also known for building high-performance teams, for being unafraid to ask the hard questions, and for being a purposeful and visionary leader who can lead through diverse challenges. If you go to her LinkedIn profile, you ever see her resume, you'll see that she has many certifications and awards to her name, including being named by Influence Digest as one of the top 15 coaches in Detroit and the most valuable entrepreneur by Corp magazine. Much more I could say about Alba, but she's only given me a few minutes. But if you ever get a chance to talk with her one-on-one, do ask about her grandson. That's when you will really see her face light up like it is right now. So without further ado, Alba, I'm going to go off camera and manage the chat box for you.
Excellent. Well, welcome. Welcome. I am excited to be with you today. And the goal is for you to think about what you learn or unlearn that would better serve you and in your goals and aspirations. And as an executive coach, team coach, group coach, former corporate executive, and a woman of color, I do understand and I do know what the cost of overusing my strengths are. And I help my clients identify them and address them so that they can achieve the future person and professional that they want and aspire to be. So I'm going to have DeDe ask you to use the chat, and please let us know, where are you joining us from? I know that we started getting some of those answers earlier, DeDe, but I would love to hear where are people located?
Yeah, aside from the ones that we've already talked about, Westland, Toluca, Mexico, Austin, Texas. You've got Westland again, Louisville, Kentucky, Linden, Michigan, Northville, Michigan, Southfield, Michigan, Bloomfield Hills. Then you have someone dialing in from the UK just past 10 p.m.
Wow.
You have
Welcome.
Darlene in Arizona, Mexico, Sacramento, California. Oh, sunny Florida. Another one from Leeds, UK. Someone currently traveling in Mississippi, Royal Oak, Windsor, Ontario, Plymouth, Troy, Atlanta. Franco Amendola says, un fuerte abrazo, Alba.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That is wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you all for joining us. And thank you for being willing to learn something different. And hopefully you will get a lot out of this session that you can take with you. So what we're going to cover, we're going to talk about what you're going to learn. We're going to take a pulse, and we're going to a little story time. And also, of course, the core piece of this day is to talk about what are overused strengths. So why are they important? And then what do you do about it? Then we'll have a call to action, and we're going to wrap up the webinar with a Q&A section. So please gather all your questions as you are listening to the content. And then DeDe is going to be reading those questions, and I'm going to be answering them towards the end of our time together. So the poll that we're going to run is about what is the main goal that brings you here today? What was your reason? So I'm going to launch the poll. And there it is. Please answer the question. What is your main goal for attending this webinar? It's a multiple choice, and you could have more than one answer. So we're almost 100% completed. All right. So I'm going to end the poll and share the results with all of you. So DeDe, what are you seeing?
Yeah, it looks like there's a pretty strong, not quite a tie, but you've got 80% grow as a person and professional. You have 73% of the folks are wanting to learn about their overused strengths. Third in line is increased self-awareness. And then there's a pretty big gap to curiosity, and then 7% and interested in being coached.
Excellent. So you're all in the right place. That's the great news. I'm sure that all of you will be able to meet those some of your main goals that you that have motivated us to join us. So thank you for that.
And Alba?
Yes.
In terms of the questions that folks might have, you'd like for them to use the Q&A, is that correct?
That is correct. Can you please just briefly talk about what we will use, DeDe?
Yes, so you'll hopefully see a Q&A button on the bottom panel of your screen if you're on a laptop. If you're on your phone, you'll have to tap the screen and it'll come up. And you can post your questions in there, and I will keep track of them for Alba, and then she will address those live, if we can get to most of those, at the end of the presentation.
Excellent. So now let's talk about what are you going to learn during this time together. One of the biggest challenges that my clients want to address is those things that really get in their way, things that make them uncomfortable, things that they want to avoid. And what they want is to find a way to make them go away. So we are here to talk about something that happens to all of us. However, very seldom do we think about it, and that is how to recognize when you are self-sabotaging. In other words, when we're not being the kindest with ourselves. And you will learn about the importance of increasing your self-awareness and increasing your self-management of your strengths so that you can truly achieve your highest potential and achieve the best version of yourself. So I want to invite you to think about your strengths. And at this time, we're going to be using the chat function. So I want you to, for a moment, think about your strengths. Take a moment to think about them and put them on the chat. What do you think are your strengths? And then we're going to have DeDe share with us what she's seeing on the chat.
Yeah, so they're coming in, Alba, connecting people and ideas. Empathetic. One person's asking, are these our strength finder strengths?
Any strength.
Okay.
Yeah.
Caring about people, helping people be better version of themselves to deliver results. visioning the future and striving for the results, problem solver, supporting people, lots of supporting people, integrity, pulling teams together, persistence and always motivated. Ooh, here's a bunch. Driven, goal-oriented, analytical, problem solver, relationship manager, strategic thinker, another empathic, accountability, another problem solver. Strength finders strengths are the woo, strategy, activator, futuristic, and one more to come. Connecting with people, persistence, reliable, trustworthy, organized, love others and inspire others. Learning, achiever, adaptable, good communicator, listener, lots of problem solvers, communicative, broad thinker, strategic learner, positivity, high goal-oriented, great network ability, team working focus, another communicator, realtor, achiever, developer, responsibility, learner. Those look like strength finders. Includer, achiever, resilient. And then woo, again, lots of woos, achiever, empathetic, input, and then there's a question mark. So.
Excellent. So now this is the moment for introspection. There's no need for you to put anything on the chat. This is for each of you individually. And I want you to think about this question. How are these strengths serving you? I want you to think about that. You can jot it down to yourselves. And I want you to put a pin on it. All right? As we continue in this journey together, I'm going to ask you to think back to that. So now it is story time, where I'm going to be sharing with you my own story in this topic. So once upon a time in the country of Venezuela, there was a little girl who was spontaneous and determined that she was going places, and so she did. And I've had the privilege to live, to work, and to serve in a lot of countries around the world. And I have had the experience in multiple industries and functions. So raised with the values of my brilliant working mother, who I learned about work ethic and the importance of kindness, responsibility, education, and also the importance of speaking English. And that's what brought us to the United States right after I got out of high school, so that myself and my younger brother could learn the English language. So I started my leadership journey very young, and my life has been a mosaic of transitions and transformations that make me who I am today. Now, I was always seeking going up the ladder, but I wanted to do it in a way where I wouldn't push others, the ones coming behind me. I didn't want to push them down. Because one of the values that my mom told me or taught me since I was very young was the fact that life was like a boomerang, and that whatever you send out to the world, you will receive back at any moment. So this woman who stands with you today has struggled with one overused strength at least. I want to speak about one today, which happens to be one of the most common ones that I help my clients with. I know how it feels to be in their shoes in the terms of discovering and learning and experimenting, living with this overused strength. It is one of the reasons why I do this work, and most importantly, why I love being a coach. Through the years, I realized that strength, what I thought was a strength, it was encouraged by corporations that I was a part of, by the environments that I navigated, particularly being a woman of color, was very expected of me to overuse this strength. But it was actually a liability, a barrier for me to go up the ladder as fast as I wanted to. And more importantly, it inhibited me to be the leader that I wanted to be. So fast forwarding, as I became an entrepreneur and business owner, I realized I had to seek progress. And if I was truly committed to serve others as a coach and grow my practice, I needed to work on that overused strength. So during my executive career journey, there was a time when I felt stuck, and I decided to hire my own executive coach. And she was the one who helped me realize that I needed to focus on what I could do differently rather than focusing on the circumstances around me. And that executive coach was the one who helped me face the fact that I had an overused strength. And I forgot to click the slides so that you could see that I had lived all over the world, that I was raised by a brilliant working mama, and that I wanted to go up the ladder. So when that coach helped me face the fact that my overused strength was perfectionism, I was self-sabotaging by being a stickler, a perfectionist. So how did this show up in my life? Well, I was always doing more than it was required of me because I always wanted to go the extra miles, ensuring high excellence. And by going after the most difficult assignments or those that people didn't want to take. So I would actually not be, I was only interviewed in my last corporate job at Ford. I was only interviewed to join Ford. After that, I was given those assignments that were either very difficult or that people didn't want. And those were the ones that I wanted to be signed up for. And also how it showed up, it was, I was feeling and seeking the unattainable. And that was that being perfect, which I really thought that it was the way that it would make me outstand. So how did these serve me and others? Well, there was a lot of overwork. There was a lot of high stress. There is another P, which is not perfection, but it's another P that sometimes we don't correlate, and that's procrastination. Why procrastination? Because those of us with perfectionism tendencies think that if I'm going to be working on a presentation, well, if it's doing 2 months, I will start next week, but then the following week, no, then later, do it 3 or 4 times or more, and then we push that element or that deliverable so that we're able to get it as perfect as we can. And also the impact that it had on others around me was a lack of delegation, because those of us with perfectionism tendencies think that we are the only ones who can do the best. Therefore, it's very difficult for us to delegate. So some pieces of my story may resonate with you, and still you may be asking yourself, what is an overused strength? So overused strengths is those strengths that when taken to an extreme, when they are overused or misused, they become liabilities or weaknesses. They can be considered derailers. Many of them are blind spots. Maybe they show up when we let our guard down. They show up, overused strength showed up as saboteurs. That's what we're talking about, self-sabotaging. They show up as saboteurs, and how do we identify that? Well, they hijack us, and it really helps us generate a lot of negative emotions, being stress or shame or anxiety, fear. And then the other piece about overused strengths is that they are contagious. So when we are hijacked, when we are self-sabotaging, those around us can get that energy and really feel that they are being contaminated or influenced by the way that we are behaving. And I'm sure that you have experienced that with many people. So the other piece that you can think about is that when it's too much of a good thing. And the other piece is whenever you are in a position and you have been branded, recognized, rewarded, for a certain strength of yours. And that got you to that moment. When you get to the next level, it's not necessarily the strength that would get you to that next level. So the what got you here won't get you there, which is a very famous book. So when your strengths get exacerbated during times of high stress, at those peaks of high stress moments is when these overused strengths get triggered, right? And they are defined by the impact on ourselves, on our well-being, but a lot on those around us in terms of the outcomes that they produce. So I invite you right now to take a pause and reflect individually back to the strengths that you identified for yourself and that you share with everybody in your chat. And think about how those strengths have served you during moments of high stress. How did it show up for you, and how did it show up for others? How did others perceive you? I'm going to give you a moment to reflect about that. So I'm going to give you some examples of intention and perception. So, for example, we may have the intention of being very attentive to details. The perception could be we are micromanaging. We may have the intention of being very independent, but others may perceive you that we are lone rangers or we are unable to work with a team. Another example could be that we have the intention of showing up very confident, but the perception sometimes could be arrogancy. And one last example for you to think about is we may have the intention of being ambitious, and there's nothing wrong with that. By the way, there's nothing wrong with these strengths. The problem is when we overuse them or misuse them. I just want to make sure that we are clear on that. And how others may perceive ambition when overused, it could be as pushy, also as arrogant. So that is what are overused strengths. What's the so what? Well, the so what is that there is a high cost and a series of unintended consequences caused by overused strengths. And I'm going to give you some examples for you to think about. High stress, negativity or pessimism, reduced energy, feeling depleted, high pressure to self and to others, burnout. And burnout has some particular traits that come from, workaholism, superheroism, perfectionism, or lone ranger. There's also impact in terms of feeling socially withdrawn, uncommunicative, distrustful, volatile, moody, unpredictable, judgmental. That being highly critical of ourselves or critical of others, or even being critical of the circumstances. Risk aversion and fear of failure is another huge element of overused strengths. Low flexibility, over eagerness to please, lack of focus, lack of creativity, lack of curiosity. And at the end of the day, there is a big waste of time and lower productivity at a very high cost to our well-being. So the question is, so how can you know if you're overusing a strength? We've mentioned the little pieces here and there, but there are three things I would like you to consider. One way is what you just did. You did your own introspection. That's what you did a few moments ago when you identified your strength and you thought about how it serves you when you are under stressful situations. The other way is to gather feedback from others. And that could be those around us from a personal side or from a professional side, and gathering informal feedback or gathering formal feedback either through a 360 or through any self-assessment or other assessments. And the third way is to examine the impact that you may be having on others. How do they respond to you? Remember when we just talked about the intention and the perception? So how do people respond to you when you are in that moment of being hijacked? How did you make them feel? If you recall, the famous phrase from Maya Angelou is, people will not remember what you said. People will remember the way we make them feel. So that is another way of what is the impact that I am having on others, even if my intention is different. So what do I do with that? Well, we would like you to join my signature Focus on Solution for Groups coaching program, The Cost of Overusing Your Strengths, where you will learn more about yourself. You'll be able to recognize when you are self-sabotaging and experience how to truly achieve your highest potential aspirations and well-being. Now, group coaching is the application of the group of coaching principles, with the difference that it is with a small group of people between 8 and 12, max of 15. And the purpose is they all share a common goal. They all are interested, even from different walks of life, even from different occupations. They are all have one thing in common, and that's the theme of what the group coaching program is about. In this case, the cost of overusing your strengths. So people are longing for personal and professional development, achievement of goals, and greater self-awareness. So as I said, the group shares a common goal, a common theme. And in my program, there are many benefits of what group coaching would be about versus either individual coaching or team coaching. First of all, it provides a safe space where we would focus on goal setting, deepening awareness, and taking action. And very importantly, accountability. So research actually shows that commitments made in public are more likely to be kept, and sharing progress with others makes people more likely to accomplish those goals. That's where this accountability partnership comes from. So being part of a coaching group with others in a similar situation creates synergy, creates motivation and inspiration, because the inspiration comes from the power of the collective, the power of that collective wisdom, the power of that collective set of diverse experiences. And that allows to deepen the learning. It allows to expand your awareness and discover new insights, to learn much more about yourself through others. Last but not least, group coaching provides also a more affordable way to support your growth and transformation by achieving your goals. So what does my signature group coaching program consist of? It is a 3-month program where a small group of 8 to 12 individuals are together on a weekly basis. And this could apply to individuals who decide to invest in themselves, but it could also apply to organizations who want different groups within their organization to go through this type of program. You will learn to identify your overused strengths or your saboteurs through an assessment. You will be coached and supported by credentialed executive coaches, both individually and in group sessions. So the program, you will go through your one-on-one coaching as well as group coaching sessions with a collective group. It would allow you to leverage, as I mentioned before, the wisdom and the power, the support, and the collaboration of the group. And you will learn simple and effective ways to truly achieve your highest potential, quieting the saboteurs and activating your inner wisdom. So for you to have the future that you are longing, the future that you want, join us to be enabled and supported by a coach and a group where you will be focusing on the being, not the doing. You will understand your strengths that you may be overusing and the high cost that you may be paying for not addressing them. You would be able to increase your self-awareness and improve your self-management. And what has been the results for those groups that I have coached? Right here, I'm going to pause so that you can see some of the testimonials from what some of my group coaching clients have experienced and the results that they have seen. And here's a couple of more. All right. So what is the call to action? Well, I encourage you to book a call where we will discuss about the details and the fit for you and register for the program, of course. Now, before we go to the Q&A section for today, please share with us in a poll that I will launch in a moment from what you have heard and what you've learned so far in this webinar. What is your key takeaway? I'm going to be launching the poll. So the question is, what was your key takeaway from this webinar? And this is an open answer. Please go ahead and submit your information or your takeaway.
Oh, Alba,
Yes?
we have one person who says that they can't hear you anymore.
Oh my goodness.
I can hear you, but of course I'm on this side of the.
Yeah, I increased the
Oh,
volume right.
it looks like, oh, they can now. Okay,
Okay,
no problem.
okay. We still have people answering.
Must be. I also put a note in there that if anybody had questions to put them in the Q&A as well.
Uh-huh.
But I'm not seeing any. You may need to close it out. I don't know if people have had enough time to write.
It's still going. We have 62% participated already. So I'm just gonna give it a moment.
Okay.
And for those of you who have already answered, we're going to, right after this, we're gonna move into the Q&A. So if you have any questions that you have yet to submit, please go ahead and put them on the Q&A section. And we'll get to it as soon as we're done here.
And Alba, a quick note.
Yep.
It's 37 past the hour, just so that you know that.
Yep. So we have like max like 10 minutes in Q&A. All right, I'm going to end the poll because we had 70 plus participation. And of course, the results, can you share a couple, DeDe?
I actually don't I can't see them, Alba,
Okay, hold on. Let me see. Okay.
but there are definitely questions coming in.
Yeah, okay. So I see to reassess my key strengths and make sure I am using them as that I'm not overusing by checking in with myself. Another takeaway, overusing strengths can be sabotaging. Another person said that I could benefit having a better understanding of my overuse strengths and how to better manage them. So thank you for sharing that. That's very, very important. We appreciate that. Okay, so we're going to go to Q&A. Are you ready, DeDe?
I am. Let's see what we have here. All right, the first one, Alba, is what are some solutions after recognizing your strengths are becoming a weakness?
So some solutions, as we mentioned, there are a few clues that you could take either from noticing how that strength is used during moments of very high stress. That's one thing. Another one could be given the feedback you can get from others. So people can tell you in terms of, well, during this situation, we would have really liked you to be more collaborative and work with us. And, the strength of independence may have been overused at that moment. So there are clues that we can get either from feedback of how we really stop and notice about what we're seeing ourselves. And as I mentioned, how other people are reacting, how are we being perceived by others can provide some clues. There is an interesting situation when people are given performance reviews or 360 assessments. There are some things that when you read them, the way that people phrase them may provide some clues. So performance reviews is another way of feedback that a lot of people can use.
Great. I'm going to combine a couple, Alba, because they are, I would say, intertwined. One question is, I may have missed it, but how do you join the group coaching? And then how long is the coaching program?
So to join, the first step would be to book a call with me. It's a discovery call for us to talk about in more detail about your needs and also to see if group coaching is the right fit for you. And then the group coaching program will be a 3-month program where we're going to be meeting on a weekly basis. In those 12 weeks, there will be 2 individual sessions at the beginning and the end. And in between is the group coaching sessions, which will be as a collective group.
I'm going to stay in that same theme. One question is, how would groups be formed? And how much time and quorum do the group work require each week?
Okay, good question. So there will be, in coaching, there is something that is very important to keep in mind. There is the session piece where some work is done there, but the true work really happens in between the sessions. So what you practice, what you reflect on, what you experiment with. So this program will have work that you would do during the session as a group, and there will be breakouts, and there will be a little piece of content delivery, etc. But then you would have things that you will need to practice in your daily life, and how you can use some of the tools so that you can apply them and then come back the following week and share your experiences so that everybody can learn from each other.
Okay. So there are some specific questions related to different strengths. But here's an interesting one I'll start with. Is overusing your strengths most often seen in women or men?
Oh no, it's an equal opportunity situation. It's for any gender. It's for any gender. I think that one of the things that I have noticed is that maybe some women may be thinking more about how they, in other words, it's more encouraged for women to overuse their strengths. It's like we feel many times that we have like to give the extra mile, and that's when the overusing part, as I share in my story, can really come into play and be seen as something that is expected and encouraged.
Yeah. I can't wait to hear what you have to say about this question. I can relate to the perfectionism, but I believe being helpful is a double-edged sword as well. How do I get better at saying no?
Ooh, you need to get my button.
I knew you were gonna.
It is actually one of the most common opportunities for many people, and that is it has ties to pleasing, being very nurturing, and also being having perfectionism tendencies also has an influence on that, because there is this risk aversion, and the risk aversion and fear of failure really makes us really tumble in that situation of saying yes or no. Well, we also always need to keep in mind that one of the most strategic questions that we can ask ourselves is, what am I going to say yes to? Because for every no that we don't say, there are many yeses that are getting really stricken out.
Okay, how do you delegate without being controlling and not telling people what to do?
Well, delegation or lack of delegation has its roots in controlling tendencies and perfectionism tendencies. Because when we have those two characteristics or traits, we think that nobody else can really do something the way that we can. And we ourselves find excuses for it. I have some clients, and I've done this myself. Well, by the time that I explain this to the person, it takes me 3 hours, so I'd rather do it myself. And at the end of the day, people end up doing the work of others, and there is a lose-lose, because when the person who's taking all the load, it's being overworked, and the person who's not being delegated to is really not learning. It's decreasing their morale, because it doesn't give them an opportunity to either try or provide any ideas or do the best that they can, so that it can alleviate the work for the person who should have been delegated. So delegation has a lot to do with being very specific about expectations, and it takes time to do that. And that's why sometimes we want to jump that step and end up doing the work for others rather than teaching others or expecting others to do themselves.
I just want to also bring into the room, Alba, when you showed your no button, Carla said, I need it for my desk. And then we had one other person, Damaris, say, same here, helpfulness is my top value and first instinct, but it stretches me beyond overwhelming levels.
That's right, because when we are too helpful, too caring, too nurturing, too people pleasing, it's always putting others first. And as the flight attendant tells us every time we get on a plane, they say that when there's a moment of change of altitude or a change in pressure, the oxygen mask is going to come down. And the instruction is You have to put it on you first before you can attend to others. So what happens is that when we are over helpful, over caring, over nurturing, over pleasing, it is very hard to use this button. And that really depletes us and it impacts our well-being.
Great. So Alba, you do have a handful of other questions, but I know that you will answer those because we are at time and we want to respect people's time.
Right.
So we can, I think you're planning to answer those and then get back with folks. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
So what we would like to do is to make sure that no question will be unanswered. We're going to consolidate all of that and we will send it to you via a follow-up email, as well as with the link to the recording for those of you who are interested in getting that. So having said that, I wanted to let you know that to please remember to schedule that call. You can go through my website, focusonsolution.com. If you have any specific questions, you can reach us at info@focusonsolution.com. And let's connect. It would be great to have the opportunity for us to connect via LinkedIn or the other social media venues like Twitter or Instagram. And I want to really thank you all for taking the time, for joining us. And from all the places that you dialed in, we appreciate you. And we're hoping that you have a great rest of your evening. Thank you so much. And thank you, DeDe. Thank you so much. You'll have a great evening. Bye-bye.